The champagne glass tapped against his gold ring. He took a slow sip, swallowed, and leaned in close. The smell of expensive alcohol mixed with his stale cologne. You are an uneducated embarrassment. My father hissed, his voice dropping to a vicious whisper. A glorified waitress. You do not belong in my ballroom. Get out. Beside him, my older brother crossed his arms and let a smug smile stretch across his face. He actually looked proud. I stared at the crystal flute in my father's hand. The very champagne I had quietly drained my own savings to buy for him. I swallowed the thick knot in my throat. Forcing my jaw to relax, I met his harsh eyes. Enjoy the champagne. I whispered. I turned on my heel, pushed the heavy metal service doors open, and walked straight out into the freezing night. The morning sun hit the floor-to-ceiling windows of my Austin office. I poured my coffee, the black liquid steaming in the quiet room. I am 32 years old, and I am not a waitress. I am the chief executive officer of a $50 million event management agency. For years, I played the quiet scapegoat. I swallowed their insults because I desperately wanted a family. I wanted a father who looked at me with pride. Instead, I got a financial parasite wrapped in a designer suit. I opened my laptop. The banking portal loaded with a soft chime. My cursor hovered over the automatic transfer lists. Jianguo, my father. Yu Xuan, my brother. My mind flashed back to the week before the gala. My mother, Xu Fen, sat in my living room, sighing loudly as she adjusted her silk scarf. She complained about the floral arrangements I had ordered for the retirement party. She called them cheap. She said the roses lacked the volume expected for a man of his stature. My father had nodded, sipping the tea I brewed for him. Completely oblivious, they criticized the free flowers while I sat across from them. Actively draining my emergency fund to save my father from absolute bankruptcy, he was broke. He had been broke for 3 years. I funded the illusion of his wealth to protect his fragile ego. They demanded luxury while I bled cash to keep the roof over their heads. My finger tapped the trackpad. Cancel auto pay on the primary mortgage. Cancel the corporate retainer covering my brother's luxury leased car. Cancel the secondary credit lines. The screen refreshed. 0 active transfers. The financial lifelines were permanently severed. I closed the laptop. My coffee tasted perfect. 2 weeks passed in total silence. Then, the illusion shattered. My phone vibrated across my desk. It was Yu Xuan. A barrage of furious text messages lit up the screen. The dealership had just repossessed his car from the company parking lot. He demanded I fix the error immediately. He ordered me to call the bank. He tried to gaslight me, claiming I was ruining his corporate image over a childish tantrum. I placed the phone face down. I picked up the landline and dialed my trust attorney. I instructed him to dissolve the privacy shield on the limited liability company that funded the retirement gala. There was no magic revelation, no dramatic confrontation in a living room, just cold, hard legal procedure. By removing the privacy shield, the accounting firm automatically issued a formal Internal Revenue Service gift tax liability notice, Form 1099, directly to my father for the $85,000 gala sponsorship. The law is absolute. To avoid massive tax fraud penalties, my father was forced to legally and publicly amend his financial disclosures. He had to prove the source of the funds. The accounting firm mailed the compliance receipts directly to his former board of directors The fallout hit the local country club like an earthquake. His elite friends, the men he golfed with, the board members he tried to impress, all saw the amended disclosures. The paperwork mathematically proved he was entirely dependent on the daughter he had publicly thrown out. The wealthy patriarch facade crumbled into dust. My phone lit up again. This time it was Pei-Jun, my sister. She sent paragraphs of panic, begging me to explain why Dad's accounts were frozen and why his friends were ignoring his calls. The golden boy brother was broke. The patriarch was exposed. I deleted her message thread and went back to work. Months faded into a hot Texas summer. Yuxuan was drowning. He had secretly leveraged his own assets on high-risk stock options, betting on a market surge that never came. He received a brutal margin call. To save himself, he quietly rerouted a $150,000 venue deposit meant for his firm's massive corporate merger summit, banking on replacing the funds with his post-merger bonus. He thought he was brilliant. He thought he was untouchable. He traveled to Austin for the VIP summit, arriving at the exclusive downtown venue in a tailored suit, acting like royalty. He demanded immediate entry, trying to impress the accompanying chief executive officers of his firm. He assumed the local event staff would bow to his corporate title. He had no idea my agency held the master lease for the entire property. I stood at the top of the marble stairs, holding the master clipboard. I watched him strut toward the doors. I stepped directly into his path. He stopped. His smug expression faltered, quickly replaced by a furious sneer. He leaned in, threatening to have me fired, demanding I step aside before he ruined my career. I did not blink. I calmly triggered the right of refusal clause. My ironclad contract demanded all corporate funds clear 48 hours early. His department's deposit had bounced. The lobby went dead silent. Yuxuan raised his voice, shouting that I was a bitter, uneducated failure trying to ruin his night out of petty spite. The commotion echoed off the marble walls. The senior executives from his firm approached, their faces tight with annoyance, demanding to know why their vice president was causing a scene at the door. I smiled. I reached into my leather folder and handed the lead executive the unpaid corporate invoice, along with the bank's rejection notice. I kept my voice perfectly level, thoroughly professional. I explained that the required venue deposit funds were diverted from the corporate account into a private, unregistered account, Yuxuan's personal account. The color completely drained from my brother's face. Sweat pooled on his forehead. Catching the glare of the lobby chandeliers, he opened his mouth, stammering out fractured syllables, trying to invent an excuse. The words died in his throat. The lead executive stared at the invoice, then looked at Yuxuan with utter disgust. No yelling, no dramatic speeches, just a sharp, brutal nod to the venue security. The guard stepped past me, flanked my brother, and escorted him out of his own event. Later that night, my phone buzzed on my nightstand. Pei-Jun again. She begged for a wire transfer to help cover our father's mounting legal and housing debts. She said they had nowhere else to turn. I stared at the screen. You chose his side when the champagne was flowing. You can pay his rent now. I blocked her number. 2 days later, desperation pushed Yuxuan over the edge, facing immediate termination and a catastrophic loss of reputation. He tried to burn my world down. He attempted to log into my agency's direct-to-business vendor portal using a forged authorization link. intending to mass cancel all my active city permits. He thought he was a ghost. He thought he could sabotage my $50 million business from the shadows. But to bypass the two-factor authentication, he made a fatal, arrogant mistake. He used his active corporate email address. He hit submit, sitting in his office, likely smiling at his monitor. Miles away, I sat in my command center. I watched my security portal light up with the unauthorized access attempt. I downloaded my company's automated internet protocol audit logs. The digital footprint was legally binding. Irrefutable proof of corporate sabotage. I packaged the raw metadata and forwarded it directly to his firm's chief compliance officer. My legal team filed an immediate civil injunction for tortious interference. The executives terminated Yushuan instantly, stripping his severance and handing his hard drive over to the authorities to protect their merger from federal liability. The next morning, my voicemail cut one last transmission. It was my mother, Shu Fen. Her voice was thick with tears, sobbing into the receiver. She told me she was packing moving boxes, forced to downsize to a tiny, rundown apartment across town. The country club was gone. The luxury cars were gone. The respect was gone. I listened to the hollow echo of their consequences. I hit delete. I drove to the service provider, surrendered my phone, and permanently changed my number. They were erased. The judge eventually sentenced my brother to 3 years in federal prison for wire fraud and embezzlement, with a restitution order of $200,000. My father moved into a cramped assisted living facility, his name permanently scrubbed from the local business registries. The silence that followed was not empty. It was the sound of a clean slate. I sit on my back porch now, watching the sun dip below the Texas hills. My rescue dog sleeps by my feet. My closest friends, my chosen family, are inside laughing over a shared dinner. We do not share blood, but we share loyalty. We share mutual respect. They do not hand me invoices disguised as affection. When you grow up as the designated survivor in a toxic family system, you are taught a very dangerous lie. You are taught that love is a transaction. You learn to buy your seat at the table by being useful, by being quiet, by absorbing the shockwaves of everyone else's failures. You think that if you just pay enough bills, fix enough mistakes, and swallow enough pride, they will finally see your worth. They never will. Narcissistic families do not hate your success. They hate that your success removes their control. They weaponize credentials, status, and cruel words to keep you performing for their approval. Because without your desperate attempts to please them, they are forced to look at the hollow, decaying reality of their own lives. I had to learn the hardest lesson of my life in the freezing parking lot of a retirement gala. Rule number 1, respect cannot be bought. Only commanded. If you have to hide your strength, your money, or your intelligence to make someone else feel comfortable, you are actively funding your own oppression. You are writing checks to your own jailers. Rule number 2, boundaries without consequences are just suggestions. A boundary is not a threat. A boundary is a door with a lock. The moment you stop saving toxic people from the natural consequences of their own reckless actions is the exact moment your true life begins. You cannot heal in the same environment that broke you. And you cannot save people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Rule number 3, the ultimate revenge is irrelevant success. I used to think winning meant forcing them to apologize. I thought justice meant standing over them while they admitted they were wrong. I was wrong. You do not win by destroying them. You win by building a fortress of peace so unshakable, so completely insulated from their chaos, that their opinions hold zero legal, financial, or emotional weight. I did not ruin my family. I simply removed the safety net they abused. And gravity did the rest. I am Jiruo. I am free. What is the price of your silence? Have you been carrying the financial or emotional weight for people who only respect you when you shrink yourself to fit their fragile egos? Look at the golden child in your life. Look at the demanding patriarch. What happens if you stop paying their tab? What happens if you close the invisible checkbook? Tell me your story in the comments below. I read every single one because I know exactly how heavy that burden feels. It is time to put it down. The camera cuts from the dramatic ending of the story to a well-lit modern studio. The host sits leaning forward, hands resting on a desk, looking directly into the lens with an intense, knowing expression. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are sitting there thinking, why did she wait so long? Why on earth did Jiruo keep paying her father's mortgage and her brother's car lease for years when they treated her like absolute garbage? Let me explain something called the slot machine effect, also known in psychology as intermittent reinforcement. When you grow up in a toxic family dynamic, you are not stupid. You are addicted. Every once in a while, the abuser gives you a tiny breadcrumb-sized piece of validation, a polite dinner, a rare smile, a quiet moment where they do not insult you. It keeps you pulling the lever, hoping that this time you will finally hit the jackpot of unconditional love. Jiruo was not buying expensive centerpieces because she was weak. She was paying the ultimate premium for the hope of a normal family. But when she finally woke up, she did not just get angry. She got smart. Let us look at her financial self-defense, because this is where the masterclass truly begins. First, look at the audit strategy. Narcissists and financial abusers survive in the shadows. They hate sunlight, and they absolutely despise a paper trail. When Jiruo needed to expose her father's fake wealth, she did not throw a screaming tantrum in the middle of his country club. She quietly dissolved the privacy shield on her limited liability company by triggering an Internal Revenue Service Form 1099. She legally forced the math into the public record. If you are dealing with a manipulator, let the paperwork do the fighting for you. The truth has no emotions, and receipts do not lie. Second, building the case. Notice what happened when her entitled brother tried to hack her vendor portal. She did not intercept the email. She did not call him to argue. She sat back, watched the server logs, and captured his internet protocol address. She handed the raw metadata directly to his corporate bosses. When a toxic person is eagerly digging their own grave, do not interrupt them. Hand them a bigger shovel, document every single move, and build an ironclad legal case. Finally, the buyout. When Jiruo denied her brother entry at the Austin venue, it was not a petty emotional reaction. It was the strict legal enforcement of a master lease contract. She invested in her own $50 million territory where she held the keys. Sometimes the greatest investment you can ever make is buying your own absolute freedom from the people who drain you. Here is the ultimate verdict. Your worth is not a stock price that your family gets to vote on. If you have to finance their comfort just to earn their basic respect, You are not a daughter, a son, or a sibling to them. You are a bank. And banks do not have feelings. They just have boundaries. Have you ever had to cut off a financial parasite or set a massive boundary in your own life? Drop your story in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into the psychology of survival. And remember, keep your receipts and protect your peace.